Hey everybody, today we're going to take a look at another state for 2024 and see which way it might be trending. I've got a lot of requests, but today the lucky state is going to be Utah. And as we get closer to the election, I might circle back around and take a look at the key battleground states one more time. But today this is going to be about the Beehive state. And the map we're looking at right here shows the presidential shifts between 2016 and 2020. The blue lines move toward Biden, the red lines move toward Trump, the vertical lines indicate turnout, and if you look at Utah, like many other states, there's a lot more blue on here. So this is usually regarded as one of the redder states of the country, but there's going to be some different trends to take a look at. I think it's one of the more interesting states as well as one of the most scenic. So first, let's get into a little bit of the background. So this state has 6 electoral votes, and in 2020, Trump won the state by more than 20 points, so not remotely competitive whatsoever. Now in 2016, there's a large independent third-party presence. Most of that is going to be from Evan McMullin, who is from the state. He does have some appeal with both parties, but he's going to have more of a backing from the Democrats, and he did get more than 21% of the vote in that election. So that is going to skew some of these shifts when you compare 16 to 20. You can see without McMullin's 21.5% of the vote in 2020, Biden went up 10%, but Trump went up 12.5%. It's also important to note that the state has not supported a Democrat for president since all the way back in 1964 for Lyndon Johnson. But in 2020, Joe Biden getting 37.7% of the vote is the highest of the 12 most recent elections. So keep that in mind. This state is gaining population, but the margins for the Republican have all easily been over 15 points in all these elections. So let's take a closer look at the last election. So again, we've got Trump with about 58% of the vote, Biden's at about 37.5%, Trump with more than a 300,000 vote advantage. If you look at the third party vote, there's a little bit this time. Joe Jorgensen had the most with about 2.5%. Now if we take a quick glance at the county map, we can see there's 29 counties and Biden was only able to win 3 of them. And you could familiarize yourself with some of the major cities, but most of the population lives in the Wasatch Front. That's going to be the north central part of the state. It includes Salt Lake City, but also goes south into Utah County, which has Provo. Then it goes north to Weber County, which has Ogden, as well as Cache County, which has the city of Logan. We'll come back to the shifts in just a minute, but let's go down here and sort the counties by the total number of votes cast. So of course, the most populous is Salt Lake County, and Biden was able to win that by double digits. Now the next 7 most populous counties all went to Trump by at least 23 points. So in many other states, we have seen one significantly blue urban county, and sometimes that dictates the politics for the entire state. But in Utah, their blue county of Salt Lake is not overwhelmingly blue. Then the other medium-sized counties are deep red, and they're able to keep the state firmly in the GOP column. If you look at the rest of these counties, Biden has a couple more by double digits. But then if you look at the margins Trump has put up in most of the lower population counties, you'll see he wins some of them by more than a gigantic 70 points. Now let's look at the shifts in some of these counties, and for that we're going to get at Ballotpedia. Now this time the shading does not indicate the margins, that just shows you how many times they voted for the Democrat or the Republican in the past 3 elections. So let's go where more than a third of the statewide population is. That's Salt Lake County. And back in 2012, Mitt Romney was the nominee, and of course he has a deep connection to this state, and he won the county by more than 20 points. Then in 16, Hillary flipped this county and won it by about 9. Also keep in mind Evan McMullin was on the ballot, but still that's a huge shift in just 4 years. Now in the last election, without McMullin, then both Trump and Biden went up a ton. Biden went up a little bit more though. He was up about 11.5, while Trump was up about 9.5. So it's clear that this is a county that Democrats could be likely to make some gains on in the future. Now if we look at some of the other counties in the Wasatch Front, we've got Utah to the south. And back in 12, this was off the charts for Romney. He won it by almost 80 points. In 16, again with McMullin, Trump did 38 points worse, while Hillary did more than 4 points better. Then in 20, without McMullin, Biden improves by 12, but Trump goes up by more than 16. If we go north to Davis County, you get a similar sense of those trends. Romney completely dominates, but in 16, the third-party support kind of scrambles the margins. But then in 20, Biden goes up more than 12, while Trump goes up more than 15. And north of there in Weber County, this is a little less dramatic, but Obama in 12 and Hillary in 16 had very similar levels of support, while Trump's support declined almost 25 points in that same span. But then in 20, Biden went up more than 9, while Trump went up almost 12. If you look at the other nearby county that Biden won, that's Summit, you can see it went up from about 46 with Obama to 58 with Biden. On the other side, Romney went from almost 51 down to 39 for Trump. The third county Biden was able to win is over here. This is Grand County. There's not a lot of population here, but it did support Romney by almost 8 points in 12. Trump barely carried it in 16. Then in 20, Biden won it by over 10. Now, obviously, we cannot look at every single county, but one other county that has some significant population is in the Southwest. That's going to be Washington County. county, and that has the city of St. George. Last time Biden did better than both Obama and Hillary, while Trump did worse than Romney but better than his first run in 16. And as you can see, that's more than a 50-point margin for Trump. Even if it moves toward the left a little bit, that's beyond overwhelming. And if you look at some of the other lower population counties, you can see most of them, but not all of them, they support Trump by easily 60, 70 or more points. And that's the margin, not his vote total. Some of his actual percentages get well into the 80s, while the Democrat is close to single digits. Next, we could take a look at this map here, which again has the 2020 presidential results. But this time, it shows you a detailed view all the way down to the precinct level. So you can see almost the entire state is red, but if you pull in a little bit where most of the population lives on the Wasatch Front, you start to see the deeper blue in Salt Lake City. Then you get some lighter blue and then eventually lighter red in some of the suburbs. But another thing we can do is click right here, and this will show you the shifts between 16 and 20. So as I've said a couple of times, the Evan McMullin vote in 16 does skew some of these results, but it's still going to show you where a lot of that vote went. More of it did go to Trump, but Biden still had some significant gains. Again, in Salt Lake as well as the suburbs, you're seeing a bunch of blue shifts in these precincts, and those can add up. So again, there's been a lot of population growth in this part of the state, and even though there's not nearly enough blue here to make the state competitive, there's a chance here that if these trends continue over the next decade or two, that the state could be on the map for Democrats. Now let's move on to the next map, and this again, it shows you the presidential shifts between 16 and 20. The red arrow shifted toward Trump, the blue arrow shifted toward Biden. The bigger the arrow, the bigger the shift. So 6 counties shifted toward Biden, the rest shifted toward Trump, and as you can see, some of these counties have some pretty big arrows. I sound like a broken record, but a lot of that is going to be because of the lack of that Evan McMullin vote. But you can also click on any one of these arrows to get a more detailed breakdown. So let's take a look at a county we haven't talked about yet. In the Northwest, we've got a county that I think has a satisfying name. We've got Box Elder County. Not a ton of people live here, but we can see that between 16 and 20, both Biden and Trump gained raw votes. But Trump gained a lot more. Biden was at about 2,200, while Trump was over 9,300. And in the bottom right, we can see there's a dramatic drop off in third-party vote. It went down over 80%. That's a raw 22.7% reduction, down to 3.7. And throughout all those changes, Biden gained 5%, but Trump went up 17.8. So this already red county clearly got a lot redder. You could do the same thing for any other county, but let's move on to some of the potential demographic shifts. Here's the national exit polling from 2020, and this will show you where Biden and Trump had their biggest shifts and the biggest gains. Now, every election is unique and every state has different demographics, so looking at the national shifts I don't think are that beneficial. The data is here though if you want to scroll down and get a more detailed breakdown by age, education, race, etc. But more specific would be the exit polling for this state. So here's that exit polling, and we can see that Trump won both men and women. Women was less, but it was still by 15 points. It's a red state, it's easy to expect Trump winning pretty much all these different demographics. He won every age group, every education group, but one he did not win here is under religion. More than 50% of the state identifies as Mormon, and Trump won them by almost 50 points. But those that have no religion, which make up about a fifth of the state, then Biden won those by a landslide 40-point margin. So the rise of a less religious or more secular identity could be something that's going to benefit Democrats in the future. The only other thing to point out, if you scroll all the way down, is Biden actually did win independents by 15 points. So in addition to any specific demographic shifts, the turnout overall or the voter enthusiasm could be another factor. Now this map here shows you the voter turnout in the last 3 federal elections. Now keep in mind, Utah is primarily a mail-in ballot state, but in 2018 the voter turnout was just about half. Then in 2020, like with many other states, it spiked up to almost 69%. The top number is the 2022 midterms, and that fell below 2018, down to about 45.6. So I would expect the upcoming turnout to be somewhere between 2018 and 2020. So Democrats getting elected to any statewide offices here has pretty much not been a threat. It's actually been more than a couple of decades since any Democrats served in a statewide capacity. But if you go back to 2022, there was a U.S. Senate election there. An incumbent Republican Mike Lee won by more than 10 points. His opponent was actually independent Evan McMullin, who we've referenced several times having run in 2016. And McMullin again had most of the support of the Democrats, but he's also going to have some appeal with a little bit more moderate to liberal type Republicans. But even with all that, Lee still won by double digits. But if you look at the map, it might give you a little bit better idea of what some of the margins would be in these counties if the state were to get under 10 points. And as you can see, all active voters were sent ballots, which must be postmarked by the day before the election and arrive before county canvasses. So the last thing we can do is take a look at the polling accuracy back in 2020. So again, Trump won the state by more than 20 points, but the polling aggregate had him up only about 9 to 10 points. So that's a double-digit underestimation of Trump's support. That's pretty embarrassing. It wasn't remotely considered one of the battleground states, so it's not a huge deal. But I don't think there's any excuses for the polling being off by 10 points. So with all that said, which way will Utah trend? Well, we know its reputation is one of the reddest states out there, but we know the state has seen population growth, and the Trump brand has not exactly resonated here. This is not a Rust Belt state in the Midwest. Voters here do seem to find appeal with more establishment candidates. We've seen it time and time again where it's such a red state, theoretically they could vote in even the most extreme Republican. But given how red the state is and how bad the polling has been here, even an independent candidate here can't even get it down to single digits. Now, Democrats here are not loved whatsoever. This is still overwhelmingly red, but we do see some potential for gains, especially in the urban centers as well as some of the suburbs. A lot of the trends this year might come down to the popularity of the party in power. Given the mood of the country has been sour on the Democrats, it's easy to expect Trump to go up a little bit in this state. The long-term trends might be a different story. It also remains to be seen how a Republican is going to perform in this state that's not Donald Trump. The more moderate Mitt Romney type of candidate, that seems to be what they prefer for the time being. So that's pretty much where things are at. There's always going to be a lot more to point out and things we can't cover, but that's an overview of what's going on in Utah. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this state? Is this one of your favorite states, or do you absolutely despise it? Aside from all the great scenery, what do you think about this state politically? Can Democrats make gains here in the near future? What about in the long term? Can a different type of Republican here make the state even redder? Which cities and which counties are you taking a look at? Let me know down below on your way out. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.